Krishna. 1, 2. Hare Krishna. Can we turn the microphone up a little bit? Does somebody know how to do that? Devagora Hari Prabhu, can you turn the microphone up a little bit? Numbers coming. That's all right. Sorry, just need the volume up a little bit. One, two, three, four. Hare Krishna, Hare. That's it. Thank you very much. So maybe Tanil, yeah. Can you please put the overhead lights on, the switch? No, thank you. Just the main light switch there. Because it's overcast outside, so I can't really read the text so well. That's it. Thank you very much. Oh, this is pretty good. Okay, here we go. So Hare Krishna, everyone. So Krishna Rupa was scheduled to give class this morning, but she's not quite well enough yet, so I'm filling in for her. I hope I'm not going to be a disappointment for any of you who came to listen to Krishna Rupa specifically. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Vishwapad Paramahamsa Parivirajakitar Asutar Satahizvanga Shila Esi Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Gaura Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namachar Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Govardhanadari Ki Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Lord Giriraj Lord Nrsingadev Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai Nitya Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, today we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 13, entitled The Appearance of Lord Varaha, and we are actually up to the very last shloka in this chapter, text number 50. Right. Okay, you can all see that there? Right, here we go. Konama loke purusarta saravit pura kattanam bhagavat kata sudam apiya karnanja libir bhavapaham Aho virajeta vinanaretaram Konamaloke purusarta saravit Purakattanam bhagavat kata sudam Apiya karnanjali birbhavapaham Aho virajeta vinanaretaram. Someone who'd like to lead the chanting? Anyone at all? Konama loke purusarta saravit Pura katanam bhagavat kata sudam Apiya kanam jalibir bhavapaham Aho virajeta vinanaretaram Konamaloke purusarta saravit Purakatanam bhagavat kata sudam Apiya kanam jalibir bhavapaham Aho virajeta vinanaretaram. Okay, here we go. Synonyms. Please repeat. Ka, who. Nama, indeed. Loke, in the world. Purushartha, goal of life. Saravit, one who knows the essence of Purakatanam, of all past histories, Bhagavat, regarding the personality of Godhead, Apiya, by drinking. Oh, hang on a minute. Did I miss one? I missed one. Let's go back. Kata Sudam, the nectar of the narrations about the personality of Godhead. Apiya, by drinking. Karna Anjalibi, by oral reception. Bhava Apaham, that which kills all material pangs. Aho, alas. Virajeta, could refuse. Vina, accept. Nara itaram, other than the human being. And here we come to the translation. Who, other than one who is not a human being, can exist in this world and not be interested in the ultimate goal of life? Who can refuse the nectar of narrations about the personality of Godhead's activities, which by itself can deliver one from all material pangs? Now, translation, please repeat. Who, other than one who is not a human being, can exist in this world and not be interested in the ultimate goal of life? Who can refuse the nectar of narrations about the personality of Godhead's activities, which by itself can deliver one from all material pangs? Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The narration of the activities of the personality of Godhead is like a constant flow of nectar. No one can refuse to drink such nectar except one who is not a human being. Devotional service to the Lord is the highest goal of life for every human being. And such devotional service begins by hearing about the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Only an animal or a man who is almost an animal in behavior can refuse to take an interest in hearing the transcendental message of the Lord. There are many books of stories and histories in the world, but except for the histories or narrations on the topics of the personality of Godhead, none are capable of diminishing the burden of material pangs. Therefore, one who is serious about eliminating material existence must chant and hear of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Otherwise, one must be compared to the non-humans. And then we have thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Appearance of Lord Varaha. Om Magyatimirandasya Ginandana Shalakara Chakshur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my darkened eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. For my respectful obeisances unto him. Jai Hare Krishna. Would you mind bringing me a cushion, please? Just one of the normal cushions. Yeah, I just need it under my feet. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, Hare Krishna. So, let's have a look here what we've got. So, narrations about Krishna are, of course, absolute, transcendental, purifying, enthusing, stimulating, endearing, etc., simply because Krishna himself is absolute, transcendental, purifying, enthusing, endearing, and so forth. Right? And these narrations, they really are the life and soul of the pure Vaishnavas of the Lord, regardless of which particular form Krishna comes when he descends here, such as Lord Varahadev, and regardless of which particular Leela he engages in, such as killing heinous demons, for example, the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, they are simply relishing the narrations of these descriptions of the Lord and his activities. Right, so made up this little thing here. So the human form of life, right? So today, in today's shloka, right, we're hearing about, how the human, who else but a human being would not be interested in the narrations of the Supreme Lord, right? Suggesting that, those who are not civilized human beings, well, maybe they may not be, but any civilized human being certainly is interested in hearing these narrations of the Supreme Lord. So, we hear that the human form of life is very, very valuable. It gives the spiritual soul the opportunity to progress on the path of spiritual self-realization. And according to Srila Prabhupada, there are 8,400,000 species of life. And of all those, 400,000 comprise the various human species. So we need to understand that the Vedic categorization of species is not going to be identical to how our modern scientists are categorizing species. So we're not always going to end up at the same numbers that they may end up at. Right? Modern science, modern biology does, however, acknowledge that, going back in history, there were other species of human beings. They do acknowledge this. But the number doesn't come anywhere near 400,000. In any case, my point with mentioning this is that there are many, many different types of species within all the material universes, and most of them actually are not human beings, right? And most of them are not in the human form. So, if a spiritual soul who is destined to take birth within the material atmosphere does receive a human form of life, then they should immediately take the opportunity to try and hear about the Supreme Lord and to hear about his activities. We know that from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj is saying this, that as soon as one can, even if when one is a very small child, one should immediately take the opportunity to take to devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj, he says, Kaumara. Kaumara is the very early age, like from 0 to 5. Kaumara acharet, right? One should practice. So from Kaumara acharet, one should practice devotional life from the very earliest, and this, of course, begins with the hearing process. One may never know when one will actually get the opportunity to engage in devotional service. This is the other thing. None of us know how long we have left in our particular material bodies, so we should never become complacent and think, oh, yeah, I'll do something I'll do later on in life. In fact, quite a few of my sort of friends that I had in the, back in earlier in my life, I remember having conversations with them, and they would say, oh yeah, when I'm older, then, I might sort of take an interest in spiritual things, and then I will look into, the more sort of important issues with regards to my destiny, my ultimate destiny and so forth. But this is actually not so intelligent, this type of thinking. So, it is not, however, right, we see all these different species up here, we even have Lord Brahma, right? It is not that other species, like it is not that non-human species of life do not also possess ears for listening and hearing. Right? Most of them do possess some type of feature like that in their material body. And all of the species of life will certainly benefit from hearing narrations about Krishna and his pastimes. Even living beings, living entities such as trees, right, plants, they also benefit from listening or hearing or being exposed to the narrations of Krishna. But in the lower forms of life, what we refer to the lower forms of life, that's the when the jivas end up in a material body that doesn't have very high cognitive capacities, for example. Predominantly, they become preoccupied with simply surviving, right, existing, and not much else, and consequently, their lives, the lives of jivas who have taken birth in lower forms, it's actually quite rough for them. It's actually quite hard just to exist, because they do not have the same facility as human beings. And furthermore, of course, in Kali Yuga, we know that human beings have more or less decimated all the natural ecosystems around the world, which support all the non-human species. And that makes it even harder, right, for these living beings simply to survive. This is actually one of the main symptoms of the current age of Kali Yuga. So we can understand that living beings in this type of situation, they are just really preoccupied with their basic needs. And sadly, we also see that actually if human beings are born into very kind of severe types of difficult circumstances, they too will not focus so much on things other than surviving. Right? I know from spending time in India, some of the villagers there, the women would work 10 hours a day carrying bricks on their heads, and at the end of the day they would get less than 50 rupees, less than $1, just so that they could feed their families the very basic meal. Right? Even though I know that at the moment, in the media we hear that India is the poverty rate in India is now at a very low rate. But I was in India just 2 years ago, and many of the villagers are still struggling actually to make ends meet. So under those sorts of circumstances, we can understand that those individuals are perhaps less likely to take out time to travel to a temple to listen to Srimad Bhagavatam class, right, where the narrations of the Lord can be heard. But of course the Supreme Lord, in his causeless mercy, he understands everyone's situation perfectly, and certainly when an individual is showing him that they are desiring to hear more about him and to learn more about him, then he does make some arrangements for that soul to eventually come to that situation where they can actually listen to the narrations of the Lord. So having an interest in hearing about spiritual topics, this predominantly manifests within Sattva Gun, the mode of goodness, as well as, of course, what we call Suddha-sattva, pure goodness. So in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada is saying there that knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond this body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. So this type of knowledge, which is developed by pious souls who are truly interested in higher knowledge and in higher teachings, it can lead the listener even higher to the Vasudeva platform, on which the narrations about the Supreme Lord are eternally manifest. We hear also in Srimad Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, chapter 25, text 24, we hear that in goodness, an individual understands the existence of a higher spiritual nature within all things, and that in the material mode of goodness, one becomes pious or religious. One becomes aware of a higher spiritual nature. This is in Sattvagun. Now here's an interesting one. This is one of my... I came across this shloka many years ago, and I'll never forget it. This is again out of the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 13, and text number 6. So this is Lord Hamsa speaking, right? Krishna's swan incarnation. Lord Hamsa is saying, until one revives one's direct knowledge of the spirit soul and drives away the illusory identification with the material body and mind caused by the three modes of nature, one must cultivate those things in the mode of goodness. By increasing the mode of goodness, one automatically can understand and practice religious principles, and by such practice, transcendental knowledge is awakened. Right? So this is some of the wonderful teachings from Lord Hamsa, and here we're hearing about the mode of goodness and how the features of the mode of goodness are certainly compatible with devotional life. Right? We know in the mode of goodness we have features such as cleanliness, austerity, simplicity, patience, tolerance, and so forth. Actually, I've got a whole list of the mode of goodness here at the back. I'll just read you a few more while we're on this topic. Right. So these are some of the features of mode of goodness that are listed in the Bhagavad Gita: purity, happiness, illumination, right, to be wiser than those otherwise conditioned, one who is not so much affected by material miseries. And actually it goes over the page. Here are some of the ones from other ones from Srimad Bhagavatam: self-control, tolerance, sticking to one's prescribed duty, truthfulness, right, careful study of the past and future, having faith in the spiritual master, simplicity. Let's turn the page here. Understanding the existence of a higher spiritual nature, to reside in the forest, and so forth. Anyway, there are actually many descriptors of what constitutes the three different modes of material nature, both in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, and also some of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very, very interesting to study. So, let's move on here. Right, okay, I think we can see what this is. Kali Yuga. So in Kali Yuga, of course, the material energy is very pronounced, and progressively, as Kali Yuga advances, it will become even more pronounced. Right? What this means is that the lower material qualities of Rajas and Tamas Gun are very prominent within the average person's life at present, and certainly within our average society out there in the world. And as interest in spiritual topics decline, right, so this is going to be happening, right? Excuse me. Srila Prabhupada explains that the mode of ignorance is more or less diametrically opposed to the mode of goodness. Right, so in the mode of goodness we have an interest, an awakening in spiritual topics. Right, this means in Tamagun there is no interest or a decreasing interest in spiritual topics. Right? So, as interests in spiritual topics decline within Kali Yuga, right, so do, how can we call it, infrastructure, right? Things that support spiritual practices, right? So I'm talking about temples, sacred places such as holy dhams with all their kunds and ghats and sacred rivers. And without these support structures in which Vaishnavas gather and discuss spiritual topics, right, that are aimed at benefiting the materially embodied beings, the spiritual sound vibrations, they actually decrease within society at large. And in general, this means that living beings in general, they're going to suffer due to being bereft of exposure to spiritual sound vibrations, such as hearing the holy name and hearing narrations of the Lord and his pastimes. Right? So this is the effect of Kali Yuga. Right? And under the illusion that is instigated by the impersonalistic energy, right? That this is, the material energy brings impersonal and personalism with it. So under the illusion that is instigated by this impersonalistic energy that is coming in with Kali Yuga, people start to imagine that they are not actually interested in hearing, in listening to the narrations of the Supreme Lord. Right? But this is, of course, a fallacy. Right? It's not true, because the spiritual jiva, him or herself, right, ourselves, the spiritual jiva is highly interested in listening to topics about Krishna. Right? But unfortunately, we are out of touch with this interest. People in the material world, they are out of touch with this interest at present. That is all. But thankfully, of course, our own dear Srila Prabhupada has come and he has inaugurated the Sankirtan movement, which directly counters this impersonalistic influence, right, that is coming from the material energy at this time. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, due to Srila Prabhupada's unfathomable mercy and kindness, the world is currently benefiting from devotees going out and doing all sorts of preaching. They're also, we know they're also making an effort to establish and to maintain some of these infrastructure facilities that I was listing, such as temples and kunds and ghats. We also know that quite a few devotees are they are restoring, right, many of the sacred places, right, in the holy dhams, such as Vrindavan and Mayapur. Some of these were for many years simply lost in the wilderness, right, of those areas. And this kind of resurgent activity, right, on behalf of ISKCON devotees, it means that not only human beings, but all living beings of life are going to benefit from this current increase in spiritual activity, right? This is what we call Lord Chaitanya's mini golden age, right? It is due to last for 10,000 years. So at the moment, we have actually both. We have Kali Yuga advancing still. It's due to advance for another 427,000 years. But we also have Lord Chaitanya's mini golden age. And within that divine energy, the Devi Shakti of Lord Chaitanya's movement, we are seeing this percolating up, these spiritual activities which are benefiting all living beings. Let's move forward here. I didn't quite know what the images to put up for this, so I was thinking about this, spiritual sounds and material sounds, right? Because in today's shloka, we are hearing about how wonderful the narrations are of the Supreme Lord and his activities. In fact, they are described as being nectarian. So here is a question for you all. What actually happens to us, or what happens within us, when we hear different sounds? So we are taught in our Shastra that there are basically 3 different types of energies, right? There's the spiritual energy, material energy, and then there is the marginal energy, right? So the marginal energy refers to us, ordinary souls, right? And we are called marginal because we have the capacity to, and we are prone to being influenced. Right, so we can be influenced either by the spiritual energy or by the material energy. If we experience very good fortune, we will be influenced by the spiritual energy, right, which actually constitutes our own innate, essential spiritual soul. Right? If, however, we are influenced by the material energy, then what is happening is we are actually being influenced by an energy that is actually very foreign to us. Right? It's actually very foreign to us. So, material words and material names, they actually have material energy within them, meaning that they move towards and within the material world. Right? Spiritual words and spiritual names, on the other hand, have spiritual energy within them, meaning that they move within and towards the spiritual world. Right? Consequently, right, if we spend our lives listening to material narrations rather than listening to spiritual narrations, then our consciousness becomes absorbed, right, in mundane topics. And then what happens is our consciousness will be moving towards and within the material energy or within the material world. Right? And the material energy is actually quite ruthless. This word ruthless, it's quite harsh, right, on the soft and, shall we say, delicate spiritual jivatma. So the material energy has the potency to implicate the spiritual jiva in mundane life, which means that the jiva's consciousness becomes manipulated, it becomes distorted, it becomes disfigured, right, to the point that he or she ends up losing track of his or her spiritual desires. Right, so, the material energy has the ability to do this, and it does it. It's doing it. So, in other words, the material energy is so actually heavy on the consciousness of living beings that their natural inclination to want to hear about spiritual topics, it becomes almost unrecognizable, right, within the mind of the individual average person. And we can certainly see this within people who are absorbed in ordinary materialistic activities. Right? So this, of course, is a very serious situation for the materially embodied soul. And perhaps the saddest part of it all is that simply by having a change of heart, right, and turning towards the Supreme Lord and listening to narrations of the Lord and of his devotees, all this material stress and anxiety that everyone in the material world experiences, it can simply dissipate. It can disappear very, very quickly. Right? So, what this situation means is that actually, all of us, we actually have a duty to perform. We actually need to become somewhat expert at thinking of different ways in which we can best help to spread this Krishna consciousness movement. For some devotees, this may mean supporting established temples and established programs. For others, it may mean using some particular skill that we have, right, which can contribute something unique, right, and that is very powerful in attracting the public to Krishna consciousness. So, not everybody out there in mainstream material life is going to come to Krishna consciousness in the same way, right? Because different people are conditioned in different ways, right? And this means that, different individuals will be more interested to hear about certain aspects of Krishna consciousness, and other people will be more interested to hear about other aspects of Krishna consciousness. So, our core outreach programs, such as book distribution and Harinam, they of course remain generic to everyone because they deliver the holy name and they deliver Srila Prabhupada's teachings through his books. But even these can be delivered to the materially conditioned beings in various ways that could end up being very effective. Right? So we should always be thinking like this about how we can best assist Srila Prabhupada in keeping this movement very strong and very progressive. We should never be afraid to consider how we, right, each one of us as individuals, may be able to inspire others to listen to these narrations about the Supreme Lord, to listen to the narrations of the Lord's pastimes, and in that way be a true servant, a true assistant of Srila Prabhupada in his mission for his Guru and for our whole parampara. So this is actually all I had prepared for today's class. I'm a couple of minutes early. Excuse me. So we have a little bit of time before breakfast. I was wondering if anyone would like to ask a question, either about today's class or about something else, or maybe somebody would like to make a comment, or if there's any corrections from our senior devotees, I'm also happy to hear those. Okay, well, we have the microphone ready. Oh, Hare Krishna. Oh, is it switched on?
Hello?
Okay, where
Hare
am
Krishna.
Tanil, Hare Krishna, yeah.
Oh, I just, Hare Krishna, thank you for a wonderful talk. I just wanted to make a comment. There's something that struck me in the beginning when you were saying we should try and begin a spiritual practice, was it? As a
at a very early age.
At a very early age, because as you grow up in the material world, the dust that accumulates can be very hard to remove. And things that stick to the dust can be hard to remove as well, and it just layers of layers that can get very, very difficult. So, really important point that you make.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it is an important point. Thank you very much for bringing that up to Neil. And these teachings by Prahlad Maharaj, right? We know the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj. He was encouraging all his little Gurukul friends, at a very young age. He was teaching them how to chant Sri Hari, chant the holy names of the Lord, and start on this devotional path at a very young age, in order to for the individual to benefit themselves, but also to benefit all others. It's actually one of our duties also, to find out how does the Lord, how does Krishna want us to act? How does he how does he want us to think? How would he prefer to see us behaving and thinking? These are questions that we can meditate on. What in our lives is the most pleasing to Krishna? Right? We can be guaranteed that if something is pleasing to Krishna, then it's going to be pleasing for all living beings, right? Even those who are heavily materially affected and who are actually under the illusion that they are some sort of enemy of Krishna, or that Krishna is some sort of enemy to them, right? That is only just on the surface. As I was saying at the start of my talk, deep down, the spiritual jiva, whichever material body they have got, the spiritual jiva is very highly interested in hearing the narrations of the Lord and in hearing the narrations of the Lord's pastime. Because this constitutes one of our core characteristics. It's hearing about the Lord. So those individuals who claim that they are not interested in material life, in spiritual life, and that they are not interested in hearing about the Lord, this is just their material mind and their material intellect playing little tricks on them. Yeah, sure. You can't fool us. We know who you really are. You're a spiritual jivatma. Yeah. All right. Well, look, thank you everyone for coming. And what's today? Friday. So on Monday we begin chapter 14 of the Canto 3. Chapter 14 is entitled Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening. Okay, Jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitya Gaura Premanandi. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.